Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Dracy, and I'm going to stick one more Halloween type episode in before I get my oral surgery done, and God knows when I can do another episode. Ain't looking forward to it, but I am looking forward to reviewing The Demon by Jack Kirby. Here's the weird thing. If you're just let's say you were bored recently and you just grow up and you don't really, you think this might be like corny and comic booky, that I can understand that because there's so much like we done with colors, really elaborate stuff. But the stark black and white, I would not like to see any Kirby stuff done in a color hold that would make the lines, turn into just red lines as opposed to black. Because the use of black he uses with inker Mike Royer is just it's so jarring. It's so in your face. And this is how I first knew really about Kirby. I knew about, let's see, I can't quite describe it. 1970, Jack Kirby left DC Comics so he could write and draw and edit 3 books in a row. Self-editing back then, which was also done at Marvel with Marv Wolfman and Len Wein and stuff like that. That was basically, I'm going to write this, leave me alone. And then it goes out shipping. And, sometimes that was good, sometimes it was bad, depending on the creator and how far they had gone off course from where they needed a little bit of reining in. But with The Demon, I think he did the best stuff. When he came over to DC, he did New Gods, Forever People, and Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. And went little by little, The Fourth World, which was 3 books, were called somehow based on a Kirby cover. Kirby never meant to call it The Fourth World, but somebody at DC decided to package that way. And that was kind of interesting because at the time, supposedly, the term Third World was thrown around a lot because there was a lot of stuff like what is that Concert for Kampuchea by George Harrison, just more awareness of suffering elsewhere, and instead of just our own confines. Wow, listen to me, I sound like I'm book smart or something, but I'm not. A little bit maybe. Well, this is yet another comic. Before I started collecting comics, me and my parents went and visited somebody, and it was this older kid who outgrew comics, and he had a couple there, and none of them were Marvel, but I didn't really have that many before. And he was just like, hey, I've outgrown this stuff, I'm not into it, and I'd be like, oh, sure, but this was unlike anything I saw. I really wrestled with it that evening, if I was going to take it home or not, or if it was going to give me nightmares, because there were horror titles at DC that were great, that would have Bernie Wrightson and many other fantastic creators, and Nick Hardy doing these horrifying covers. Just like DC really knew how to do horror, and I stayed away from it as a result. I mean, I mentioned in the past that Marvel, they didn't do horror that well. Their horror books were sort of like superhero comics with a little bit of a horror bent, with the only exception being Tome of Dracula that Gene Colan and Marv Wolfman did for 70 issues. I know Marv didn't do the first few issues. I was trying to streamline it, and I talked too much, and there it is. Well, this guy is just creepy looking, and the colors are so eerie, and thankfully he put a longer horn on his head so you could tell the bad guy. Blah blah blah, and you will exist in this place. That should be like a game at home. Like you put down what you write in that area, what something should do, or you will exist in this place. I can't remember what it was, what I actually found out from the Jack Kirby collector, but it was put on a color hold. It was red, and somebody at the printer messed up because. Just like, you have your printer, your copier, your printer nowadays, and you have the cyan, you have the magenta, you have the yellow, and you have the black. And that's how they printed back then. They had a very limited range of colors, and they would go down like, yellow, cyan, magenta, and it was two varying degrees that they got these colors. So like I said, I read this, and it was very unsettling, and I'll show you the page. It really got me. Like, it was weird because Kirby is not necessarily a subtle guy. and that's where his strengths lie. I mean, his stuff is immediate, and like, here we go. This is the page I saw, and it just creeped me out, like something like him coming down the window. I was just like, that's so eerie. I would freak out. I don't even have to read Terror by Night by Hillary crying out loud. So I'm looking at this. I didn't know there were two demons. It was what's the word? A substitute that's been created to fight him. And look at that! Wow, those big old mitts. Get Clarion the Witch Boy. He was based on one of the San Diego Comic-Con kids, and look at that. I saw that, and I'm like, he goes, I can't breathe, I'm weak, sick. Looking at that, I mean, it says the rot of the plague. I mean, that made me sick almost. I mean, not severely, like vomiting or anything, but it's just that the way Kirby's brain works, and it's completely unfettered, whether it was through Stan or whether it was through anybody else later. This is kind of weird. But just so those not in the know, Jack Kirby always drew panels. He never he plot things slightly in his head, but he would do this panel, then he would do that panel, and you would never. He didn't even know how he was going to end the issue until he was getting near it. Cake eating. I'll have to use this as reference for next time I review some comics. How many cake eating Clarion the Witch Boys? And even though it's broad daylight, it's just it just looks so harsh. That's the stuff of nightmares right there. Nobody else that I know, I mean, that I've read at the time, it comes near that. I mean, this kind of stuff, this creepy, blocky, unearthly type of art, nobody else could do it like Kirby. I mean, and as I mentioned before, when he came over to DC Comics, he let off a lot of steam because he was upset with what his disagreements with Stan and how Stan would make changes, editors, and it seemed like Stan was taking Kirby for granted. Although at the end, Stan he threw him a bone by having Kirby write a few of his own stories, but it's just a little too late, I guess. But what's weird about it is unfettered Kirby. It's just creepy as hell. It's scary. It's so dark. And Kirby was an infantryman in World War II. He's seen his share of horrors. And I think when he got to publish himself, he still could do some fun stuff, but mostly his stuff was, all the guys were always angry and they're yelling, and they don't say anything. They don't say stuff. They announce stuff. You know, it's like this brassy, in your face kind of whoop. Here we go. This came out a while back, and what I love about it is it has newsprint art. I mean, pages, which gives a truer sense of the original art. Like, that is creepy as hell. That's just amazing. You know, and you see there's somewhere in Europe, and that really goes back to early days of Kirby. You know, knowing all about the European culture and history and what we call haunted imagery, and just all this stuff. A lot of the stuff he might have heard from family members. A lot of stuff he was a voracious reader, and this thing was just so dangerous. And it would have done warp my brain. And if you spend 2 minutes with me, you'll know why. It's just his stuff was, I say, ugly in a good way, vulgar in a good way, immediate in an amazing way. It's just wow. And there's been so many artists since that they've copied Kirby, because it's just the most powerful art for this genre. I'm not saying just horror, but scary stuff too. And this little critter there, he will come into play later. The Fear Monster. And but Kirby was constantly creating, and he had a good batting average. Let me put it this way: there's some stuff that was kind of like, meh, I don't know. But the Demon was probably my very favorite Kirby DC book. So just all these horrors. So that's like, oh yeah, there you go, got the hands. He's not going to give you a big splash unless there's a payoff. And like, look how ugly everything is. And I mean, like a boy drawing something ugly on purpose, you know, just, but it works. It works. It's magnificent stuff. And like I said, there's so much energy, so much explosion. And Kirby did have a lot of anger from him because he probably had some PSD, you know, from the war. PSST. Did I say that right? Sorry. And a lot of it comes out in here. Not even like a direct answer to that, what he dealt with, but the war basically taught Kirby that life is very hard. You have to do a lot to survive. You have to stay ahead. You got to really... he just learned it was a lot harder. I can't even imagine. Being in the service is tough enough, but he was an infantryman who knew action. And I'm not saying he's glorifying it here at all. He's just more... my supposition, I could be 100% wrong on this, is that these were sort of good stories to vent some of that stuff. You know, that's just me being acting like I know what I'm talking about. So this stuff is great. So, you know what it is? It's uncut Kirby. Kirby was always with Joe Simon or somebody else, and this was all him after 40 plus years in the business. So, and it's like these ungodly sights, and the Demon is my favorite. But I'm going to jump ahead. Whoop. Jump ahead about 15 years to Saga of the Swamp Thing, by whoops, nope, who's that? I don't know. Some guy I can't say. Actually, I don't think he's taken his name off Swamp Thing yet. I think everything else he has. So we can go on to... Oh, Alan Moore, you shame on me. Fooled me again. This is beautiful stuff. I know being a Jagoff, but great stuff from Alan Moore. Very fresh at the time. He can make just a conversation horrific sounding, and Stephen Bissett and John Totleben, they carry it so much further. I never really liked the Swamp Thing. You know, I liked Bertie Wrightson's art, but I didn't care much for the stories. This is when Swamp Thing learns that he is not Alec Holland. He is just a self-aware piece of vegetation who thinks he's Alec Holland, and it makes him mad, drives him mad. So as soon as that came out, I something about the art made me want to pick it up, and once I read this, I'm like, oh, I'm in for the long haul, as these guys are. No. That's it, look at all that. But our pal the Demon shows up later on, several issues later. And the reason is there's this fear-eating monkey that Jack used briefly in the first series of the Demon, and it's tormenting these kids who are in they're special needs kids, and one kid is psychic or something like that. I'm sorry, I never read the whole thing because it would take me days, and I wouldn't be able to stop. But yeah, there's the creature right there, and it was scary enough as a small image in Kirby's books, but here it's really, really hyper demonic and disturbing. But, there's the Demon. And you know, that's the thing. He's yellow. These primary colors. If you're good enough to know your genre and you decide to go with horror, you could work with any color. Any color. Like, this isn't like circus tent yellow. It just happens to be yellow with all these lines around it. And if you were to see that, if you were to like look out a window and saw that looking at you, you would not be comforted by the bright colors. You would be horrified and probably think it was jaundice. And this is pretty horrific. Battle between Swamp Thing and Etrigan the Demon. There we go. Oh, so great. I could go on more stuff, but what happens is the little kid, he says, "No, leave her alone." And the little creature goes, oh, he goes to the creature, "You killed my mom, you killed my dad, but I'm not afraid of you." And he's a fear eater. He thrives on fear. He goes, "You're a scummy little monkey and you don't scare me. You're a liar. You just pretend to be things." "Well, you can pretend to be a snake or a wolf or a monster, and I don't care. You're not frightening me." And, well, it starts to get real small. Little kittens are scarier than you. You're not as scary as a mouse, not even as a bug. And Etrigan eats it. Ah, fear, no matter how small it has grown, retains a certain flavor of his own. Moore started doing... he started doing rhymes that the demon would do. There's another one there. And going back real quick, just to let you know, one of the few times Kirby actually semi-copied another person's character was Hal Foster did Prince Valiant, and it was one short segment, a couple days episodes, or it was run in the daily papers, where I think it was Prince Valiant who put a goose skin mask over his face, and that was fashioned like this kind of creature. And it's been known for years and years that that's where Jack got the idea. So that's it. But I hope you enjoy this and have yourself a very, very spooky Halloween. Okay, you did not see this. Okay, we could talk about the fear monkey, but no, we don't know who wrote it. Okay, it's your smart ass Drew heading out. Take it easy.